Hey folks, this is TWiP Pro Critique session number 11. Troy Miller is here to dive into some of the latest submissions to the TWiP Pro Photo Critique channel. This is TWiP. All right, we're off into the races. Hope you guys had a good holiday weekend as we record this, if you celebrate the Easter holiday or Passover. But this episode of the Photo Critique is going to be pretty interesting. Troy Miller is here again with me to dive into some of the latest submissions and some pretty good ones this time. Troy, have you had a chance to look through them at all yet?
I have. I love looking at these. This is great. They're always inspirational.
Yeah, always inspirational, and it's inspirational to me because it serves as a take that lens cap off kind of thing. You know, it makes me want to get out and like, oh, look at this. You know, Brian did this shot of this awesome bee. I want to go out there and take shots of bees now. You know, so
I did bees the other day. I was sitting in my backyard. I was like enjoying the sunshine. I thought, grab the macro and go try not to get stung.
Hey, you know, sometimes a bee's like that. You know,
got to be like that.
I had to do it. It was there. It was T-ball. I had to do it. All right. Let's dive in, man. So we got 7 or 8 to go through today, right? So
we do. Yeah, we have 8.
The first one is from Mark Domke. So Mark is a TWiP Pro member. He submitted this Kona sunset, and I think he submitted this one based on a previous critique session we did of a similar image that he had. It's kind of a panoramic horizontal version. This is more of a vertical tight version. What do you think of the shot?
I love it. This has been almost a year since my anniversary trip, but not for my anniversary, to Kauai, and I'm really missing going back. Sunsets there are amazing. I love the image. I love how sharp the palm trees are. The fronds are super sharp and crisp. I really dig that. My only suggestion would be maybe a little off the top and the left side. I just feel like if the composition, no balance, is off a little bit. You know, we don't need that headroom in that side on the left. Crop that in, and I really don't have a lot else to add. This is very well handled. I love you can even see the palm fronds in the sun itself, which is really nice. Yeah,
that is cool. Yeah, it makes you yeah, it definitely brings you back. Like I said on the other image and the other critique, it kind of makes you feel like you want to be in Kona or in Hawaii, kind of hanging out with a pina colada on the beach, you know, chilling there. Yeah, it looks cool. So from a technical standpoint, when I look at this image, I think the same thing. Yeah, this does the job. This could be a postcard. This could be printed, you know, large or whatever, and it would probably hold up really well. If I was to simplify it, I would probably remove the cutoff palm trees from the right side. You know, there's that one at the bottom that has the branch is kind of jutting into the frame, and then the rest of that palm tree is kind of cut off a little bit, kind of peeking into the frame. Like if that guy was out of there and you only had those 3 heroes in there, the mom, the dad, and the baby palm tree.
No, that's a good point. No, that's great. Yeah.
So simplify it a little bit, but even with the other ones, the palm trees that are photobombing the photo, I think it's still great. This is a great shot, Mark. So thanks for submitting this. Thanks for redoing the crop and submitting another version of this. I mean, that helps a lot for us to kind of get an idea of what you were thinking of when you put this one together.
Capture the feel, capture the moment when you were there. It tells a good story, which is exactly what photography is all about.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, capture the moment. Yeah, and the other thing is like when you're doing these kind of photos, it's always a balance, right? Because you're a photographer, but you also don't want to relive your vacation through your lens, right? You know, and be like that. And both of us are probably that guy that are like, hey, we go to a cool new place and we're dragging the family around to different areas.
I was gonna say, what do you mean you don't live it through your lens? That's the only way I can see.
That's the whole point.
Appreciate a sunset unless I'm looking at it through a 70 to 200 to 2.8 compressing the palm trees across the bay. That's how I see.
I know. I feel like I've missed entire portions of my life, especially in the military, because everything was TTL, man. I saw everything through the lens. Like even rocket launches, we would take photos of these these giant, you know, Titan space launch vehicles, and I would see the entire launch through my lens. And then when I landed, I'm looking at the photos, I'm like, oh, these are great, but I don't even feel like I was there because I never saw it with my own eyes. I saw it through the lens. So you got to take some time to enjoy this stuff too, right?
Yeah, yeah. No, that's how I do it.
Yeah, cool. All right, the next one is from Brian Fisher. He's titled this one B. And it is indeed a bee. Very vibrant colors on this one. And it's a little scary, too. That bee clearly has a lot of patience with humans. So what do you think of this one?
I think this is really nice. Having just photographed some bees, I realize, you know, when you see bee photos, they don't sit still. These suckers move a lot. And to get depth of field and to capture that really takes quite a bit. I'm kind of struggling with the dead centeredness of this, and I feel it's a little bit hot. You know, I think the exposure can come down a little bit. That lower left corner, I'd like to see come down. I wish that we didn't have that other flower in the top right corner. You know, I think that you and I are both on the same path of simplifying the elements in the image. And for me, I really want to come in on that bee, maybe even crop it, you know, more. The detail, the pollen that's in the hair on the back of the bee. But it's really cool. Very, very cool shot.
It is. Yeah, I'm zooming in on it now, and you're right. You can see it's either pollen or that bee needs some Head and Shoulders dandruff shampoo because he's got issues. No, that is fantastic. And tack sharp. Look at that. Tack sharp down to the individual flecks of pollen on that bee. That is crazy.
Yeah, they're not easy to chase down.
Yeah,
this was shot. Oh, you know why it's so sharp? He shot it with his Pentax 645Z.
Oh,
this was shot at 7.1 aperture, 400th of a second.
Wow! And we're just looking at the JPEG right now too. I mean, I can't imagine what the actual 1:1 file looks like. Good work. Yeah, I agree. As far as composition wise, the flower in the upper right and the brightness of the lower left, I think the whole thing could probably benefit. If you're gonna dead center it, then, you know, knock down the four corners with a little vignette just to kind of draw the eye in towards the center, especially on a circular type image like this that's cropped square.
Yeah, and he's got room. There's definitely room in there to crop and put that. You know, go ahead and put the bee dead center. You know, crop it nice and tight and put them dead center. Yeah,
absolutely. It's about the bee. It's about the bee and that flower and what the bee is doing, his work for the day, right? Everything else is ancillary, including the flower off to the upper right and the blurry area on the lower left, because we're like, okay, what is that? You know, so it's kind of drawing a little bit away from the overall image, but still great image though. Great image.
Yeah, in Lightroom and or like Capture One, where you can select a color range, you could grab that magenta color and you could pull that down slightly, pull the greens down slightly, enhance the orange in the bee and the contrast in the bee, and just sort of create layers of depth. We don't really have a foreground, but we certainly have a middle ground and a background that we could play with and push that for depth.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, using selective color or to really precisely drop down or bring out certain areas of the image, like even the orange on the bee's abdomen there, to make that a little bit more orange and bee-like, right? Because it's a bee. Look at that, cool. He's got his little Charlie Brown shirt on. It's nice. I don't know. It's just Mountain Dew. I'm in a mood today.
It's the Mountain Dew, yeah.
It's the Mountain Dew. All right. So the next image is from Andy S., who's a relatively new member to the TWiP Pro community. He submitted in the last critique. And here's another one. He calls this one Burrowing Owl. And I'll bring that up on the screen there. Burrowing Owl. Look at this little guy.
Those guys are cool. Those guys are very cool. There's a field out here by our airport that the owls will show up seasonally, and they're tiny. They're really tiny, and they're hard to photograph.
Yeah. Well, look at the foliage around him. Yeah, he's a little person, and he looks like he's resting there, right? Because he's got one foot down. Is it only?
Yep, yep. They will come out and they will chill. I dig this image. I think that this image could really benefit from some contrast on the owl itself.
Mm-hmm.
I think I love that little splash of light coming in across his face, that sort of edge light that sort of give me a little portrait sense.
Yeah.
I love that. We don't need as much headroom, and I wish there wasn't as much of the brush around there, but that's the nature of shooting, you know, birds in their environment. So it looks like the right side had been burned down a little bit, which is nice. Keep that from being too specular. But just really on the bird, I really want to see those flowers pop. So you can do a little local adjustment for sharpening in Lightroom. Maybe a little clarity would bring out those feathers quite a bit, and crop in a little bit tighter.
Yeah, and look, he's got the owl to look him directly in the eye there. So it's
yeah.
That's killer. Yeah, it's definitely an image that makes you want to stop and look at it. And this is, I mean, this again, you know, I think this survives the print test. Would you print this? You know, would you put this in a book? I think you could print this.
I would print that. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I would even play with cropping it so it's much closer, you know.
So you get more of the expression of the owl too. Yeah.
Yeah, looks like there's resolution there. Maybe crop out, you know, the branches. You might have to clone some of the corners of the branches out, but get in there nice and close if you have the resolution to do that.
Yeah. Good job. Good work. Look at that. All right, so the next image is from member Kyle Nishioka. He's titled this one "Light Painting," and I'll bring that guy up here. Light painting. Here we go. It's on the screen now. What do you think?
Well, first impact comes up. It's fantastic. I love the colors. I love the contrast from the red on, you know, our camera left to the green. I like that. I like that there's detail in the shadows everywhere. The look, you know, the direction of her face and stuff. In a portrait of this nature, I tend to look at it like the maker has full control. So with that in mind, I would like to see the right side of her face, that hair that's hanging down there. I wish that wasn't there. You know, I wish I could just see a nice clean profile. But taking the image for what it is, I love it. It doesn't look sharp to me. I think it's her eyes don't look sharp.
Yeah, that's a longer exposure. Well, yeah, it looks like, well, he's light painting, right? Like he said on TWiP Pro. So he's got a long exposure and he's painting her, and she happens to be human, and humans can never remain 100% still, right? For a longer exposure like this. So,
but that's the challenge with light painting, isn't it? Though, is that you gotta, you know, we like sharpness. Sharpness is one of the basics of, you know, the photographic elements, and getting things sharp or intentionally soft, somewhere in between, where her foot seems to be pretty sharp. Her tattoo tends to have some pretty good detail in it. But around her face and her eyes, I'm kind of struggling with that. I wish that was sharp, but
yeah, no, cool. I agree 100%. I had in my notes the same thing on the hair on the right side and the sharpness of it. But then, you know, it's light painting. But you're right. You know, if you're going to light paint, you have to work around that. And the other piece of it was, I was thinking, if this is light painting, the experimenting is one thing, but do you need to light paint this, right? If this is does the light painting add to the story that you're trying to sell with this particular shot, or was it just, I want to see if I can light paint on a person? So in other words, you could have, you know, would strobe, like 2 or 3 strobes, been more effective, and then doing some work in post to get a similar kind of look? Or was the act of using the flashlight or light painting with this part of the overall piece? So I'd like to know more about that, and what the driving force behind using the technique of light painting in a portrait like this was for. Was it just, and Kyle, if you could respond to TWiP Pro, it'd be great. So was it because you wanted to, you're experimenting, which is 100% valid. You know, you have to continue to push yourself and do stuff like this. Or was there some other reason why you felt like you wanted to light paint on this particular image versus popping a colored strobe on either side? And even with the strobe technique, you could have light painted it with a strobe, right? So in a dark room, you know, pop a red gelled strobe on the left of her, and then have her not move real quick and pop the same strobe with a green gel on the other side. And that way you would at least have, the motion stopping power. Still might have a little motion in there when the subject shifts between those exposures. But,
right.
On the same note, it's pretty interesting. I mean, it's cool that you could do that. It's just two approaches to the same issue. You agree with any of that?
I do. No, absolutely. Light painting is an amazing, amazing technique. So if you want to look up an artist that does amazing light painting, his name is Eric Curry. Oh, God. I mean, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of files per image, and then he puts them together later. Just amazing stuff. But light painting is such a unique way of handling lighting on an image because it can be naturally unnatural. You can sort of fool the viewer into seeing things. So no, I like it. And very impactful, whether this is big or small. Even as the icon, you look at it and go, oh, wow, that's cool colors. I like that.
Yeah, it's definitely different. One other resource to check out would be photographer Jake Hicks. I've interviewed him on This Week in Photo before. His name is Jake Hicks, Hicks, and he is a brilliant photographer and an expert at colored gel photography and mixing gels to get certain parts of the image in daylight, and using a colored filter on the lens versus a light source that's in the opposing color range so that it cancels out to daylight, and you can do all kinds of cool stuff like control the background color, or wherever the strobe doesn't hit becomes the color of the filter, and where the strobe does hit, it becomes daylight balanced or tungsten balanced or whatever you want it. So you get lots of different things you can do when you learn that technique.
So, an image like this, you could bring something like this into Capture One, even Lightroom, and select that color range and completely change that hue of the green and the red, and completely separate what those colors are doing, what kind of look and feel you have. So that's the cool thing about digital. As long as you have those colors in there, we can kind of push those and play with those and give it a whole different mood after the fact. So,
well, that's cool. I want to continue that. I have a question on that. And by the way, thank you, Kyle Nishioka, for submitting this. It's a great image, and thanks for participating in the TWiP Pro communities. You've been adding value every week. I appreciate that. But in terms of the idea, Troy, of doing color work in post versus doing color work when you're shooting the image, in photography or any artistic endeavor, there's really no one correct way to do these things. But in the case of like this one, if we niche down into light painting or using colored gels, where does it make the most sense to do the color treatment? Should the photographer learn how to do color gel type photography and get good at that, or should they? And I'm answering my own question here because there is no such thing as or should they dive in and learn Capture One and learn how to selectively edit things? What do you think?
I'm although I'm a huge fan of my software and the things that I can make them do, I'm even a bigger fan of capturing it in camera. And what that does, that helps you react and manipulate your environment. So if you don't understand how light works and how, if you were to bring two gels together, the colors that those create by blending them, when you're in a natural environment and you want to offset daylight, or you want to offset tungsten or something, you're not really comfortable with doing that, because there's a lot of things you can't do in software easily. So learn it to get it in camera first. When I do a lot of my macro stuff, I use different colors. I'll use a red and a blue, and then when they overlap, especially in ice, they'll give me a purple. And I know that because they're opposing colors, I can pick one and I can tune them. But I intentionally pick those two colors to capture in camera to help me get that separation before. So,
interesting.
Short answer is learn to do it in camera the best way you possibly can. Then use your software to take you the other, 70% or 30%, whatever it is.
Yeah, that's interesting, because it's hard for more established, I don't know, maybe for any photographer to get in that mindset of yes, I'm capturing the best pixels I can when I click the shutter. But you're like you said in your Watch Me Work session that is going to publish today, you were saying, like, when you're shooting, you're envisioning, you're gathering raw materials in a lot of cases. Sometimes you nail it in camera, but sometimes you're gathering raw materials, and you know that, later I'm going to remove that air conditioning unit, so this is a good shot. Whereas some photographers that are fine tuned to try to get everything right in camera would recompose and maybe get a less a not as good shot, because they're like, oh, this would be a perfect shot if it weren't for the air conditioner, But right. Troy goes in, he'll take it, knowing that later I can easily remove that air conditioner. And everyone, all of us, most of us can do that, but can remove the air conditioner. But it's getting into that mindset of, I'm working with post-processing at my back, and I know I'm going to do these things to the image, right?
Oh, absolutely. I think that post-processing is the other half of my creative workflow. I'll go out and I'll photograph these things, and I'm like, okay, this is going to look so awesome when I drop in a better sky, or when I, take that, pole out of the scene that's killing my frame, or I can manipulate these colors. How cool is that? And knowing your gear, knowing that your gear is only going to capture so much, but visually this looks better than what my gear can capture. I need to massage this image. I mean, Ansel Adams was a pro at that. Yeah. So yeah, we definitely need to learn how to do that.
Yeah, I agree. All right, let's move on. This next image is from Andy S, another one. And he's titled this one simply Window. Here we go.
Oh yeah, I saw this one. Yeah. I think I commented on this one when it was in the feed. I was drawn to this one right away, because this is the kind of thing that when I walk around, places, I love windows and abstract doors and shapes, and I really dig this. I feel like it might be a little over sharpened. Let me zoom in a little bit. It does look a little crispy, but that does sort of fit this mood. The top right corner, I wish, was cropped out a little bit, because I can see a little bit of the building. But other than that, and maybe this is a cliche, but I would love to see this in black and white.
Oh yeah, I was going to say that. Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking that too. I'd want to see it in black and white as an alternative processing, just to see an alternative version. But depending on where this was taken, like this the orange and the sort of distressed wood and the bar, those sorts of elements, they could lend themselves to a certain part of the world, whether it be like parts of Mexico or, wherever in different parts of the world where these kinds of colors and textures are predominant. So, taking the color out would take it out of that location in some ways. It would tell a different story, I think. So if Andy is trying to tell the story of this was, I don't know what this is exactly, but if this is a Mexican jail or something, then you probably want to leave the oranges in there. Maybe not, depending on what the story surrounding it is. But looking at it from just a textural black and white standpoint, if you convert this to black and white, then yeah, everything pops, and then you focus less on the color and more on the window itself, which is the topic of the image, right?
Right. And I would suggest to the maker, when you walked around and you saw this window, was it the colors that attracted you, or was it the shape that attracted you? And if it's more the shape and the pattern, then black and white might tell that story better. If it was the colors and you love the orange, then most definitely stick with that. Then I would say, let's saturate this a little bit. And if you're processing this, you're processing this in alien skin, see what your metadata tells us. Pull the blacks down. Pull the blacks and the shadows down, and that'll saturate that and give it quite a bit more depth. I think that would help this image quite a bit. But I dig this kind of stuff, man. This is what I photograph when I walk around. When we did it in Sacramento, I walked around to pictures of doors and drains. And
yeah, there's some doors like this in Sac. Yeah, there's from a technical standpoint, I would flag that upper right corner just like you did. Like maybe either crop in a little bit, or if you want to keep this composition exactly the same, clone that out in the upper right-hand corner. The other thing that I noticed was the shadow on the bottom of the image. I don't know if you burned that in, or was that actually there? Like the shadow on the bottom and the shadow on the upper left. Andy asks, if you comment in TWiP Pro, let us know if those elements were actually in the scene, or did you put them in there? Those the burnt in corners, or was it, you know? Because if they're not, it looks like if those were there, it looks like there was just like a beam of light that's hitting that window, which is kind of cool, right? So,
and then accentuate that, you know, play to that, play to that effect, you know, tune it a little bit more to play to that effect. Yeah. And that top right corner, you're absolutely right. That's a trap. You know, there's light traps and dark traps, and that's definitely a trap because your eye keeps going there going, yeah, what is that? You don't want that. Get the viewer's attention, keep them in the center of the frame.
Yeah, and it looks like some sort of metal too. See, we're obsessing over that corner, which is what you don't want, because it looks like some sort of metal, which takes me out of this. Oh, look at this wood. This is like from the 1940s or something, and you see something relatively modern that takes you out of the illusion. Yeah. So yeah.
Probably a roof line.
Probably. That would be my guess. The next image is from Mark Harris, and this one he calls "There Is a Point." There is a point. All right, there we go.
So I guess this has to do with the statue that's pointing at the mill across the river there or something.
Yeah, I think that's what he's doing. Yep.
That's the challenge with titles, is that if we don't entirely understand what you're referring to, it's hard to, you know, put ourselves in that place. It's a really cool shot. I really like where we're going with this. I feel like it's Is it tilted? Maybe it's not tilted. It feels like it's kind of tilted.
Like to the left a little bit?
Maybe. Yeah. Yeah, that flagpole in the back is tilted a little bit to the left. So that's being picky. I would definitely push the saturation and the clarity and things like this. I would get that red barn to pop a little bit more, and then probably crop off the right side, right to that flagpole. I don't think we need that.
Yeah.
This was shot on a D850, so there's lots and lots of resolution in there, so you could definitely get away with that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a fun little shot. I think it's fun. You know, it's I think he submitted an image that was from the same location before that. I don't know if you and I critiqued it or me and someone else, but this was definitely that he spent some time at this barn, right? So there's a couple things that I noted. I did note that it's ever so slight, you know, just looking at the horizontal line there. Like if you look at the horizontal line behind, let's say the statue's left foot there, you can see the back line that's slightly tilted. It's got the whole image slightly tilted left, I think, just a little bit. I'm splitting hairs here.
Well, even the pad that the statue is on
is tilted a little bit. Yeah,
it's tilted.
Yeah, and if you probably put this in Lightroom and draw a line up using the straighten tool, you could see, you know, draw a line on the barn itself, and use the edge of the barn as a guide to make it square. I think that would lock it into place. But I definitely agree. Yeah, that barn, for me, that barn wants to pop out of there. Right. Wants to be more saturated. Wants to be a barn. Right. This looks like it was probably most definitely an overcast day, but still, you know, you've got the resolution to pull that out and make that more contrasty. And, you know, drop a little bit of clarity in there to make it a little bit more vibrant.
Yeah, push the saturation a little bit, or just bring the blacks down. Bringing the blacks down will help a lot with that color. And you know, if somebody's listening to this and they're like, God, you guys are obsessing over the tiniest little bit of you know, horizon, that is just innate in us. That is not something that's easy for us to unsee. And when you're shooting, you know, we see it right away. And then in our own images, I know that I have to fix that. That is just one of those kind of things that over time you tend to see really, really easily. And then you'll do it less when you shoot. A lot of my wedding images are crooked. I gotta fix them because I'm shooting fast.
Yeah.
So, but even though a viewer may not catch on that it's tilted, when you take that out, it's less of a distraction. Yeah. The less distractions you have in an image, the more that they can enjoy, you know, the core of what you're sharing.
Yeah. And speaking of distractions, looking at this image large, I've got it large up here on the MacBook Pro. The statue itself, which is the subject, I would argue that the subject is the statue and the barn, because they're the giant images in the scene. But the barn is soft and the statue is tack sharp. So for a shot like this, where you wanted both, where both of them are the subject, maybe choose a smaller aperture so that you can get more of that background in focus, or get the barn sharper, and put them, you know, to kind of complete the illusion. If you're trying to go for that illusion that the statue is in fact pointing at the barn needs to be as in focus as the statue itself. So.
Now, I would not, I love you, Frederick, but I disagree with you. I think that.
All right, and that's the end of our show, ladies and gentlemen. No, go for it.
No, I think that the shallow depth of field is amazing. I can tell you from the metadata that he shot it at f/16. At it's a 50 millimeter lens, f/16, ISO 200 at a 40th of a second. So I like the barn slightly soft. I think that, to me, adds dimension. This is a kind of shot that it's really up to the storyteller. What are you trying to tell us?
Totally. Yep.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah. See, that's why we have two people. That's why we have two people doing these critiques, right? Because it's completely subjective, and you get 2 points of view, which is great. Love it.
But here's an interesting thing that someday, we'll have to cover. But, he's shooting at f/16. He's not going to get a lot more depth of field, even at like 22 or 32. So this would be perfect for focus stacking.
Yeah, there you go.
To pull all that into focus. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe we should do a tutorial on focus stacking.
Yes, we should.
All right. Well, cool. Well, thanks, Mark Harris, for submitting this image. Very good work.
Oh, yeah. And he's shooting with the D850, which will do focus stacking in camera.
Oh, yeah. So will the Lumix G9. Just want to put that out there. That's what I'm shooting with lately. I have yet to use that feature, though. I mean, a lot of my Lumix cameras will do focus stacking, but I've yet to use it, for anything. And I don't know if you get focus stacking with the Nikons. Can you do handheld focus stacking? Like, could you shoot it and then align them later and then?
You know what? I've never done it. I have one. I have a D850. I haven't shot.
There's another tutorial right there. Put that on the notes.
I'll have to figure it out.
All right, let's move on to this next one. This next image is another citizen of the Micro Kingdom from Brian Fisher. This is untitled. I guess I should bring it up. Here we go. That's creepy.
What is that?
I want to say, I don't know what that is.
It's not a bee. It's not a bee.
It's not a moth.
Could it be a moth?
Well, look at the wings. I mean, the wings are moving. I don't know what that is. Is it a fly? Brian, comment on this. What is this? Is it a mosquito?
Yeah.
What is it? A flying hybrid mouse? Like what? It's definitely sharp, But look at this thing. I want to know what that is. I'm zooming in on it right now.
Shot it with his Pentax again. Do those autofocus?
I don't know.
Is that 645 autofocus, or is he manually focusing that?
Brian's pretty good. He may be manually focusing this.
Yeah.
But yeah, geez, look at that. That is. What is it? I need to know what it is. Okay, all right. Let's assume. Let's
look at the image. Yeah.
It's just some sort of insect that is that's having lunch right now. What do you think of it?
Well, first of all, I love bugs. So any of this kind of stuff is right up my alley. I dig this stuff. What I do think that we could probably benefit from, and I don't know if you've got me on camera, you're going to see me holding stuff up.
No, we have the alien is on camera right now.
Oh, okay. I'm just holding some proofs up in front of it, cropping it from the bottom, because I think that if we were to crop it just to that leg that goes behind the pedal, like if we crop just below that or something, lose a little bit of that bottom. And then if we could burn down the lower left corner, where the flower is, and really get us to focus in on the pterodactyl, that would be great. I dig it. I think it's awesome. I want to see how much resolution is in an image like that, because I've never seen a full Pentax file before. But
me either. Hey, Brian, do us a favor if you're listening to this. Just upload a shot of a crop of just the eye. I would love to see just that eye and see how much detail is in just the eye of this this flying elephant.
Yeah.
So yeah, and tell us what this thing is. By the way, we need to know what it is.
Yeah, my only other suggestion would be I think the wings are a bit too blurred. So it just feels like we have this floating fuzzy body, you know, and that's a bit hard to wrap my head around. I mean, we know it's flying, but I wish there was a little bit more wing there. 1/25th of a second probably isn't enough to capture those wings. So they're beating pretty fast.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, the first thing you think of is like, what is that? Especially since it's relatively unidentifiable right now, right? So you look at it and you're like, and then if you look at it without realizing that its wings are moving fast so you can barely see them, then it's like, really, what is this? What has long legs like that? That proboscis sticking out with eyes like that?
Right.
What is? And keep that out of my house.
This is actually a tribble feeding. This is how tribbles feed.
There you go. It's the female tribble. That's what this is. This is how tribbles get around on their home planet. Oh, man. You see your geek is showing, Troy Miller. Your
Super geek.
Your geek is showing, bro. All right.
Tribble right there.
Do you really? Really?
I do.
Does it make sounds?
Yes, but I deactivated it because it's annoying.
Oh my God. Yeah. See, I'm getting a picture of who Troy Miller is. There's an Enterprise back there somewhere. There's a Tribble.
There is. Yeah.
Yeah. It's good stuff. All right. So this last image is a bonus I wanted to throw in here. So we critiqued this one on a previous TWiP Pro critique session. And Fizz, who is the creator of this image, resubmit it with incorporating some of the suggestions. And I think, let me bring it up here. So some of the suggestions that we made were, it was wider last time, and you could, the capital was less obvious in the background. And he's brought that in and kind of moved it over a little bit, and it looks like he pumped up the contrast a little bit too, and you know, it looks like a much stronger image. I want to say, I should have put it in here. I want to say that the original image was in color. I think I suggested taking it black and white like this to make it more of a narrative about this crowd of people descending on the nation's capital. And this was one of during last weekend when they had all the protests around the country for gun control and shootings and all that stuff. So this was a very timely photojournalistic type image. Troy, what do you think of this interpretation of the image?
I like both of them. I'm looking at the original one that's in the TWiP feed, and it's black and white. I really struggle with the two of them. I do think that there was too much sky in the original, so I love the fact that is brought down. I like all the people in the foreground in the original, and I like how wide that is. The guy carrying the sign, however, is a little bit too dead center. So the original, okay, so let's just go back. I'll go to the image that we have up before us right now. There's really nothing that I would do to this. I think that it's a fantastic documentary shot. The thing that I can't quite figure out, though, is the Capitol has a weird blurry texture on it, and I'm wondering if that isn't like heat from that. Yeah, you know what I mean? That shimmer, it looks like that's on there.
Yep.
Which is fine, which doesn't take anything away from it, but I'm just wondering what that is. But the way that it's presented immediately in the crop and the composition, and you can read the signs, and what an amazing image. It's really well done.
Yeah, you should be proud of this one. It's really cool.
Yeah, the black and white is handled very well. There's detail in the shadows. You can see facial expressions. I think this is a well done photojournalistic image.
I agree. Yeah, this definitely tells a story, and I think any news organization would be proud to put this in there in an overall narrative of what went on during this event. So. Right.
And this is a good, well-rounded photojournalistic image because it tells a story without you having to explain it to me. So just the viewer, I can look at it and I get it. This is timeless. This will make sense forever.
Yeah. You look at this 30 years from now and it will make sense.
Yep.
Good stuff. Cool, man. That is the last one. Thank you, Fizz, for redoing that and submitting it. Much appreciated. Good work. All right, we're at the end, man. This is critique session number 11 in the can now. Any parting thoughts?
You know what? Keep submitting. This is amazing. You're inspiring me. You may not realize it, but I see these images come in, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go out in the yard and shoot, or I'm gonna go do something, and I think that's great. So just keep pushing yourself and try something different. You know, I would say, like, if it's something you do normally, don't submit that next time. Let's submit stuff that we're not comfortable with or we're not used to. Frederick and I will throw some stuff in there, won't we, Frederick?
I will. Yeah, I have some stuff that I shot just yesterday that I want to throw in there, or actually over the weekend. Yesterday and the day before. So I'm going to throw some stuff. I'm not going to put it in critique. Maybe I'll put one thing in critique. I don't want to flood critique with my own stuff. But yeah, I definitely want to get some opinions and get a dialogue going. And the things some of the things I shot were texture based. I was kind of getting out of my comfort zone and just kind of looking at textures around me and capturing them to see what they would look like with a little bit of in-phone processing. So I was shooting with my camera and then transferring the images to my iPhone and then seeing what I could do with them. And those are the ones that I'll post, and we'll see what those look like.
Cool.
Yeah, fun stuff. Cool, man. All right. Well, Troy Miller, people want to connect with you. Where should they jump over to on the web?
Spicyjello.com. It's being revised right now to have more of my social media and connection. So that's sort of the hub now where you can sort of track me down. So
awesome. Perfect. And thanks for doing this, man. I appreciate it.
Hey, fun to be here. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. And folks, if you want to connect with me or any of the stuff that we have going on at This Week in Photo, just jump over to thisweekinphoto.com. That's where all of our shows and all that goodness, and you can sign up for the TWiP Pro community there, all that good stuff. If you want to jump directly to the TWiP Pro community, just go to TWiP Pro, TWiP PRO.com, and that'll allow you to sign up for our sort of exclusive TWiP Pro community, and you could submit your images and we'll review them on one of the upcoming critique episodes. All right, that's it for this episode. We'll see you guys around. Take care. This is TWiP.